What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Gladiators. I'm going to take you back a couple weeks. I finally drew an Iowa tag. Took 5 years of applying, buying preference points, but I finally got the coveted Iowa tag, and we took a 10-day trip out to Iowa. It was absolutely amazing. There were a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and I want to take you along on that adventure. So as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from our fan base, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. All right, so I get into Iowa on November 2nd. I head right out to the woods. It was a 10-hour drive. It was a good drive. Got there relatively quickly with no issues. Jumped right out into the woods. I had a spot all in mind, set up, ready to go. Jumped out in the woods and I sat. Only saw a couple does way behind me. Now this is a great spot that I had hung cameras in back in August, and I had tons of shooter bucks on camera. I mean, giants, and this is public land, Iowa public land. So my hopes were really high for this spot. I hunted several times over the next few days. I had only seen those couple of does, and it was just not productive. However, the weather was incredibly warm. We were having temperatures up to 75, almost 80 degrees on a lot of these days. So it was really tough hunting. There wasn't a lot of deer moving. All the locals were saying, hey, too early, you know, just these big bucks are not moving. And they were right. You know, cameras kind of died down. There just wasn't anything going on, but it's Iowa, so we kept hunting. Anything can happen. There was people still killing deer sporadically here and there. So we were still hopeful. We still put the time in. We were hunting 10 to 12 hours a day, coming out minimally in the middle of the day just for a quick lunch and then right back in the stand. So after a few days, I tried a new spot. I found a great river bottom spot. It was a spot that I had kind of scouted earlier in the season. Not exactly this spot, but I just happened to stumble upon it. Lots of deer sign, rubs, scrapes, lots of runways. And I thought, boy, this looks pretty good. Let's give it a try. So started hunting this river bottom, and I saw a few spike horns. That was it. Now we're 4 or 5 days into this trip at this point, and I'm starting to get a little worried. So again, I move to a new spot. Well, the one night that I didn't hunt my river bottom spot, I had a 10-point come through on trail camera. Not a big buck by any means, 120 to 125 inches, but a respectable looking 10-point, but really not what I'm in Iowa to kill. But when you got a $900 tag burning a hole in your pocket, you start thinking some of these smaller bucks look pretty good. So I was considering that, but I guess I'm glad I wasn't in that stand. So we're gonna fast forward to November 7th. I go out hunting in the morning and I get a call from my buddy Ryan, who I'm down there hunting with, that he got a nice one. He said, hey, I just shot one. He called me on the phone. He was super excited. He said, hey, it's dead. It's laying dead right in front of me, right in the creek bottom. I think he's pretty good. He's respectable. And you know, whenever you can, I'll need some help. So I hunted for about another hour and I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get down and go help my buddy. I headed back to the hotel. We met up and then we headed out to go get his buck.
You go on that other side.
Look at the size of that body.
You get him on the other side. probably gonna roll him over on this. Well, can we go right through there? I don't know. You step right there, it gets real deep. You good? No, we gotta come my way. Come up right there.
So big congratulations to my buddy Ryan. He put the time in. He's a heck of a deer hunter, and I couldn't be happier for him. So moving into the next day after Ryan kills his deer, once again, I move my spots. I find a great spot on the map. It's a great funnel, and I'm thinking, this is gonna be loaded with tree stands. It's one of those aerial spots on the map you look at and go, that's where I wanna be. Well, everyone else is probably thinking that too. So I take a walk back there, I look at this area, and there's no other tree stands and there's nobody in there. I couldn't believe it. There was a scrape every 30 feet, a rub every 20 feet. It was littered with deer sign, and so I made the decision, I'm hanging a stand here. This has to be hunted. It's a great funnel. Connects two huge sections of woods together, necks down real small, and I was just drooling over the spot. So I hang my tree stand. It's about 800-yard walk back. After I get the stand hung, I walk out of the woods. I get talking to a guy from Iowa. You know, he's a public land hunter as well, and you know, we're just kind of conversating about deer hunting, and he asked if I was going to go hunt. Well, I looked at my watch, and we're looking at 2:30 at this point, and I'm thinking, man, it's getting late. I got to go. Yes, I'm hunting. I got to go. So I get dressed, head back out to my stand that I just hung. I climb up in the stand. I'm raising my bow. I hang it up, and I turn to hook my camera up, and I look in the woods, and there's about 140 to 145 inch 10-point coming on a string right to me. So it's scramble mode. I'm trying to get my camera hooked up onto the arm so it doesn't fall. I'm reaching behind me in the tree trying to get my rangefinder. I've got to get an arrow in my bow. I didn't even have time to take my quiver off my bow. And this deer's coming. He's 50 yards now at this point. He's off to my right. And so I'm ranging him, and I ranged him 3 times at 42 yards. Now, I didn't take into account the angle that he was at. He did end up working closer out in front of me. Well, I had in my head, he's 42 yards. I ranged him 3 times. That's what he is. So I dialed my single pin sight to 42 yards. I stopped him. You know, I was drawn back, and he just stood there perfectly broadside, and I let the arrow go, and it went 2 inches over the top of his back. I couldn't believe it. So that deer takes off, spooked like crazy, gone. Never gonna see him again. I'm pretty depressed, I'm upset. There's a lot going on in my head right now. And I start analyzing what happened, and I can see in the dirt where he kicked up, where he took off running, and I ranged it, and it was 32 yards. So that was an error on my part in misranging that deer. I could have swore he was 42, turned out to be 32, shot right over top of him. It was a bummer.
Well, guys, if this trip couldn't get any worse, I wasn't even set up. I just hung this stand. I walked all the way back to the truck. I'm sweaty, I'm dirty. I changed, and I headed right back out. I wasn't even set up yet. I didn't even have my camera on the arm. And I just missed a 150-inch buck because I was rushed. He boogied. He's gone. That deer ain't coming back. I went right over his back at 40. I ranged him at 42. And he must have, you know, when he walked those extra couple steps, he must have come closer, and I zipped right over top of him. I can't believe I just did that. Well, hey, at least I had my chance. I finally saw a nice one. It only took 7 days. Well, I gotta collect myself and try to figure out.
I start texting some people. I just missed a big one. This is a bummer. But you know, it's hunting, it happens, and I'm trying to keep my head in the game. And I had a buddy of mine from Michigan here that said, keep an eye out, he might come back. And in my head, I thought, you're out of your mind. That deer is spooked, he's gone, he's not coming back. A mature buck like that is not gonna stand for that type of activity in the woods. Well, I turn and look, and here he comes. He's coming right back. I couldn't believe it. On a string, on the same trail, but he's cautious. He's looking around, he's a little spooky, and he gets to about that 50-yard mark again, and then he skirts way out in front of me. So he didn't maintain that same trail because I was planning on shooting him at 32 yards in the same spot. But as luck would have it, he was a lot smarter than I was. He skirted out further behind me at about 55 yards, and there just really wasn't a clear shot. And with a buck being on super high alert and a little spooky, I just didn't want to take that shot. So I grunted at him a few times lightly, just trying to feel him out, but I knew that he just already was a little spooky of the area, and really anything I did I don't think was going to bring him in. So I watched him walk off. He went down into this funnel that I was talking about, and I never saw him again. That was the end of that deer. Really unfortunate because he was a beautiful buck. So I hunt the next few days. I see several different bucks. I do have some standing beans off behind me, which is a great little standing food source for these deer in Iowa. This is public land, but it is farmed, and the farmers have a requirement to leave 10 to 15%, I believe, of the crop for the deer. The DNR requires that of them if they're going to farm this land. So right by this funnel, this pinch, is a huge block of standing beans. So these deer are funneling into these beans every night like clockwork to feed, and several decent bucks as well. So throughout the next couple sits, I see several bucks, several smaller bucks, a couple decent 8-pointers, what I would call good Michigan bucks, you know, maybe in that 120-inch range, but that's just not what I'm there for. We're looking for something special. This is Iowa. We've got a lot of time and money wrapped up into it, and we're just trying not to shoot something on the smaller sides. So now we're moving into November 11th. I'm really running out of time here, and this actually ends up being my last day of hunting in Iowa. I had planned on hunting the next day as well, but I got a phone call from my son who was back home, and he said, "Dad, I just shot a big buck." So I've got a lot of emotion, a big range of emotion going. I'm in Iowa, I'm deer hunting. My son's back home, shot a buck. I know he's gonna need some help getting this thing taken care of. So I plan on getting a hold of my wife and my son to figure out what's going on with this deer. Well, I'm calling, I'm texting, no one's responding. It's driving me nuts because I wanna know what's going on with my son's deer. I wanna know what buck he shot. I wanna talk to him. I wanna hear the excitement. I wanna know that they found him or they didn't. All I got was a pin sent to me that they were out tracking, but no one would answer their phone. So the night hunt ends, saw several deer, I believe a couple bucks, and so now I'm standing under my tree stand 800 yards deep into the Iowa forest. I can't get a hold of my family to figure out, do I need to take this tree stand down and come home? Do you need my help, or do you guys have this handled? Well, I finally did talk to my wife. She said, yes, we're gonna need some help. If you could come home, be home sometime tomorrow in the morning, that would be great. So I pulled my stand, I went into another location, pulled one last camera I had in the woods, and that was it for my Iowa hunting trip. Before I did get back to the hotel though, I got a phone call from my son saying that he had found the deer. It was an 11-point buck that he had seen several times. I had seen it as well, passed it. It was a 2.5-year-old, but Peyton had been drooling over this buck. He really liked it, and it came in right at dark. He shot it, and a huge congratulations to my son because he is really following in his old man's footsteps and enjoying the outdoors, and he just loves deer hunting. So I love seeing that. It's really exciting. And again, big congratulations to my son, Peyton. All right, guys, that's all we got for you today. Thank you so much for following along on my Iowa Adventure Part 1. I am planning on going back sometime in the late season. I don't exactly know when, but that is in the works. I've got to nail down some dates and make that happen, but it's very likely you're gonna see an episode 2 for Iowa because I need redemption. I really struggled out there, and I missed a couple opportunities, and I want to get back after it. So again, thank you so much. Like, comment, subscribe, let us know what you think. As always, be safe out there, and thanks for following along.